Yep, folks, this is a Toyota HiLux, but not as you know it. It's called the HiLux REVO BEV concept, and it's a preview of an all-electric future for Australia's most popular vehicle. Should we embrace it? Should we fear it? Well, let's check it out, drive it, and find out. Okay, first things first, this is a one-off HiLux, not a production model. It was developed in Thailand, where HiLux is built and unveiled at an event to mark the 60th anniversary of Toyota Thailand last December. It was brought to Australia to star at a dealer conference in August, be studied and tested by Toyota Australia product experts, and be driven by potential fleet customers and media. One day this vehicle could spawn a production model that could come to Australia, but nothing is confirmed. After all, Toyota won't even sell its first BEV in Australia until next year, when the BZ4X SUV arrives. Speaking of which, it's likely the REVO BEV borrows quite a lot from the BZ4X for its powertrain. Not that Toyota's admitting much, apart from the fact that this is a rear-wheel drive with its motor mounted on the rear chassis, working with a Didion rear axle and leaf springs. The lithium-ion battery pack sits between the orthodox frame rails underneath the body here. And what about the REVO bit of the name? Well, that's just standard for HiLux in Thailand. So there's a HiLux REVO GR Sport, for instance. This concept is based on the HiLux REVO standard cab. The equivalent in Australia is the HiLux Workmate 4x2 single cab. There are no official performance claims being made for the REVO BEV, but one thing the Toyota test team has established in Australia, it's got a range between recharges of about 200 to 230 kilometres. Now, in the world of diesel utes that can cross the outback for 800 to 1,000 k's between visits to the Bowser, that doesn't really cut it. But that's not really the intention of this vehicle. It's more for city and suburban fleet use, rather than for private users who envisage crossing the Simpson. Get in the cabin of the REVO BEV, and it's remarkably stock HiLux in here, although there are a few giveaways that it's electric. This drive mode selector between the seats is one. It's got an electric park brake. No HiLux in Australia gets that. There's a state of charge indicator for the battery here in the instrument panel, and some EV specific information in the trip computer. Otherwise, she could be just the HiLux parked in your street. So first thing you're conscious of when you jump in this thing is it's, well, basically priceless. It's a one-off concept, so, you know, be a little bit careful, Bruce, with what you're doing with this thing. We are on a test track, I should add. This is Toyota's little test track at Altona. We can't drive it on the public road because it's not registered for those purposes. Anyway, so far though, pretty impressive. The feeling from the motor. The motor is typical e-motor in that it's quiet and smooth when you launch, and then gives you a good hurry up in those early step-in throttle acceleration moments. Doesn't feel particularly strong in its acceleration as you get higher in the range, suggesting maybe it's quite a low output e-motor, maybe the 80 kilowatt motor from the BZ4X. But anyway, we're going to give it a run now and see how we go. So my colleague will hit arm and we'll give it another crack. So the result comes up and it's about 11 seconds from rest to 100 kilometers an hour. So that's pretty good for a little vehicle, for a zip around vehicle in the city. You can see why the guys at Toyota think this vehicle has got some real potential, or a production version of this vehicle would have real potential in that sort of role. Otherwise, outside of the drivetrain, it handles quite nicely. It's running on AT Dunlop Grand Trek rubber, so Not quite the perfect rubber for this sort of environment, but it feels nice and stable. A little bit of roll, probably basic understeer sort of setup, but yeah, no vices really detectable. Turns okay, brakes okay, does everything okay. Yeah, you can see the potential in the concept for sure. So that's the Toyota HiLux REVO BEV concept. And after a pretty brief first taste, I gotta say I'm quite impressed. It's almost production ready. You could imagine one of these driving around the streets pretty much as is. Of course, I can't see one crossing the Simpson anytime soon, but if this is an indication of our electric ute future, then it's worth embracing, not fearing.